right, welcome. So this video is just lock in and grind, right? The title of this video is just lock in and grind. The two main points I want to go over in this video are the power of focus when it comes to productivity and the importance of repetition, and then why you actually need to just lock in, right? Why locking in 100% on whatever goals you have is the key to success, right? You cannot achieve results instantly, right? It is not going to be like instant gratification when you're scrolling on TikTok and you get the reward as soon as you put in the slightest bit of effort, right? Delayed gratification means that the results do not come right away. They do not happen instantly, right? It takes effort and repeated effort. But the only way that you can at least simulate what it would feel like to get immediate results would be to lock in at such a deep level, right? Put so much of your focus, so much intensity into the work that you're trying to complete right now, whatever goal you're trying to achieve right now. By putting 100% focus and intensity into that specific goal, you will start to progress so fast that it feels like it's happening instantly, right? It feels like it's happening in the moment. You actually feel that progression as it happens. And so therefore, that's the only way that you can get fast results, right? Is by working so hard and putting so much intensity into it that everything kind of condenses together and you actually see the results within the work itself, right? So there is no way to see instant results, but there are ways to speed up the process. There are ways to make it easier and more effortless to actually work through the resistance, right? And one of those ways is to just lock in and grind, right? If you are in this state of focus, right? If you are in the state of flow, working on your goals, working towards your goals and progressing towards your goals, and you are not breaking that flow, and you keep that and sustain that over months, over years, you can achieve great levels of success with what feels like effortless flow. But really, it's just that the effort becomes almost effortless. It becomes something that doesn't take more energy to create, simply because you're in this flow state, you're in the motion, right? So you've created momentum and now you're riding that momentum, but as you're riding that momentum, you're using it to continuously build more momentum, right? And so as that goes on for, let's say, weeks to months, you begin to create this state of effortless flow, right? And a lot of a lot of ancient philosophers and a lot of samurai specifically actually used to talk about this state of effortless effort, right? Effortless flow. Basically, being in this state of full exertion, but to you it feels as though there is no effort, there is no exertion. Internally, you are still, right? This is the state of stillness, this is the state of flow. We can create and maintain this state within our work, within our goals, if we are willing to remove the distractions and completely and fully engross ourselves into the task at hand, into the goals that we're trying to achieve, right? So for this raw thoughts video, I have a few points about productivity and the power of focus in productivity, as well as repetition, right? So the first part, the power of focus in productivity, right? How much focus or attention you give to something determines how much you can achieve within that field, right? So the degree of your attention determines the degree of your success. This is due to small details that are missed by most, but can be used by those with an acute attention to the task at hand and the minor details involved, right? So what I'm saying with this is the reason why focus is so important is because of the fact that there are tiny little details, right? Subtle details, right? Subtle changes that can be made to, if it's a sport, your technique. If it's a business, the business, right? Small changes that can be applied to the business, right? Small changes to your process, right? That most will not even notice, most will not pick up on, most will not be aware of, right? But those with an acute level of attention, specifically to this task at hand, will be able to utilize those small details, those subtle changes that create and amass great results, right? So, for example, as a snowboarder, technique is everything, right? Because technique is the difference between crashing and tumbling and likely getting hurt and injured, or being able to land clean and ride away, right? Technique is everything. If you have bad technique, you you can get hurt doing anything, right? Bad technique, you can get hurt just riding down the mountain, right? This takes park out of the picture, this takes jumping and doing tricks out of the picture. Just riding down the mountain with bad technique, you can fall, you can crash, and you can likely get yourself hurt if you don't know what you're doing, right? So technique is everything, right? Technique is the difference between life and death in some cases, but in reality it's just injury and staying healthy, right? So if technique is everything, that means that most people who want to become great within that sport, who want to become a higher level athlete, well, that means that all of their focus needs to be put on technique, right? How can I develop my technique? How can I create the best, most perfect, most optimized technique, right? And the difference between something as simple as like a 360, right? A 360 is just, you spin around 360 degrees. It's not too complicated. I'm sure most people who have no idea what snowboarding is can at least imagine what a 360 is. If you do a 360, right, the basic principle is you jump off a jump and you turn around, right? And I've seen a lot of people who have really good threes, but that's all they do. They just kind of like throw their body in a circle, in a rotation, right? And they pull it around and they try to fight it around. The difference between someone doing it like that versus what I'm trying to do and achieve, I go into the minor details of, let's say, for example, one of the first things that you want to work on beyond just doing the 360 is a setup carve, right? So, setup carve means the exact turns and the exact body positioning I have coming into the jump as I'm about to do my trick, right? So, that setup carve, it's a subtle thing. Not many people who aren't really, really deep into the professional side of the sport would understand what a setup carve is. They'd be watching, they wouldn't think anything of it, right? But those who know, right? And the difference between a good setup carve and a bad setup carve is landing and not landing, right? It is very subtle, right? You can't really notice, but if you are the rider, if you are the person who is working and progressing their technique and really focusing on this, you can absolutely feel the difference, right? When you hit a good setup carve and you pop good off the jump and you get your three, right? The difference between that and if I was to just ride straight in and try to jump and turn my body is massive, right? But I only have the ability to notice that difference because of the fact that I've been practicing my technique over and over and over again for months on end. I put 100% of my focus into snowboarding this last season, right? All of my focus was on snowboarding and my progression there. Therefore, I was able to pick up on these subtle details. And there's probably like three or four things just with my threes that I learned about that changed my technique, that changed my ability to do them forever, right? Completely reversed and changed how I can do them, right? And it's the difference between bigger spins and being stuck on a 360, right? There's somebody I know who does pretty good 360s, but he can't go beyond a 360, right? Whereas I'm now progressing to the point I'm just about to break through and go beyond 360 and be able to do fives and sevens and beyond there, right? Because I've worked on and developed my technique so much that I've found all these subtle details that make it so much easier that, hey, now I think I can actually pull another spin around because I've optimized my technique for my three, and now I can progress it to the next thing. And this applies to really anything, right? This can apply to business as well. Those who completely fixate and focus on their business will achieve so much more because they're constantly improving. They're constantly improving upon that business. They're constantly making changes and adjustments based on what went wrong and what went well, and they're constantly analyzing that, right? Versus the business owner who does the work, does the basic work, but then doesn't go beyond that, right? Doesn't actually give attention beyond, let's say if it's YouTube's case, right? If I just made my content and like threw out a product and I did the work to make the product, I do the work to make the content, and then I forget about it, right? I won't see as much success there because I'm not constantly applying progressive overload. I'm not constantly applying a growth mindset and a developmental mindset where I'm continuously looking for small improvements, small changes, small things that can actually create massive results, right? These small and subtle changes, these subtle details that most won't notice are actually the ones that create the biggest results. And that's the real difference between the top 1% and the top 5% is that the top 5%, right? They've mastered here, I have this written down, but they've mastered the basics, right? They still understand basic technique, but the difference between the top 1% and the top 5% are the subtle details that the brain can only recognize with countless repetitions, right? So these subtle details that are so small that you will not be able to pick up on them, even if you were the individual I'm talking about, where you're so focused in and so locked in that you're making these changes, making these adjustments, right? Most of these subtle details are so small, especially in things like physical sports, the subtle differences in your technique as someone who's locked in and focused and developing versus someone's technique who is still very skilled and very talented but doesn't train it like you do. The difference is so subtle and so small you won't even consciously notice it in most cases, right? Your body just learns to naturally do it and your brain picks up on the exact motions, the exact movements that would cause you to be able to do this thing, right? And do it well and do it better than the next person, right? Your brain picks up on it after repetition, right? Through repetition of the specific trick. Let's say it's 360s. If I do 100 360s a day, you're telling me mine won't be better than a person who only does them, you know, 10 times a day, let's say. Even someone training daily, right? 10 times a day versus 100 times a day. The more repetitions causes me to then see more errors in my technique, more flaws in, my process. My body might have a weakness at some point, right? Let's say it's my core. Let's say my core is a little bit weak, right? I need to strengthen up my core so that I can hold it and keep it tight throughout the rotation, allowing me to bring my legs around, let's say, for example, right? Um, Whatever it may be. These subtle changes are only able to be picked up on through repetition because the brain learns through repetition. The brain learns how to do things by doing them and doing them consistently enough to then learn how to do them better, right? And so focus, right? The amount of focus, the amount of attention that you give to something will determine the quality of your practice, the quality of your training, right? So the next thing is about repetition, but the amount of focus that you give to your training, the amount of focus that you give to each repetition will determine how much of these small details that I'm discussing you can pick up on. And obviously, this isn't the only reason why focus is good, but the more focus that you give to something, the more awareness that you have about that something. And so, therefore, the more you're able to learn about it, right? And so, combined with the next step, which is repetitions, you will be able to amass great success. You'll be able to create real results, right? So, the next part is about repetition. No one starts off as the best at something. If you've only shot a basketball once, don't assume that that was the best you can do, right? That's simply your base or starting point. You can become better or worse based on how much you train a skill. With practice and repetition, you will become better. Without practice, your skills will slowly diminish. Repetition is the basis to all elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and high achievers. Oh, sorry. Repetition is the basis to all elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and high achievers' skills in their field, and is the real reason one individual in that field becomes recognized over their competitor, right? So, if you snowboarding is a good example. Most other sports, soccer is a good example. If you look at two of the best athletes, right? Soccer, you have Ronaldo and you have Messi, right? The two of them are very, very, very close in skills, right? If you look at two high level athletes' shots as soccer players, or if you look at two like professional snowboarders do a 360, or even let's say 1080 or a 1260, 1240 rather. Um, yeah, whatever. So let's say 1080, right? Three full rotations. That's kind of a basic trick for most professional snowboarders. If you see two snowboarders at the highest level do that trick, most people would think that it looks exactly the same. Same with a soccer player's shot. If you look at two of them shoot a shot right next to each other, the same shot, it'll look the same to most people, right? But the difference between the one who becomes recognized as the best and the one who doesn't is the amount of repetitions that's put in. Because, like I said, the subtle details make the greatest changes, right? So, these small details that are picked up on through repetition cause you to then separate yourself from the rest of the pack, right? Because the rest of the pack isn't willing to put this much intensity and focus into their work, into their training, into their development. And so, therefore, they can't see the same results, right? Though two soccer players look similar, right? Their shots look similar, their dribbling might be similar. Though two snowboarders do the exact same 1080, there's a big difference between one and the other because one has more practice, right? One has done the repetitions more, right? One has put in more effort to creating better form, better technique, and so therefore they separate themselves from the rest. And in a lot of cases, the differences are so subtle that you can't even physically see it, but you just know, like, yeah, this guy's really got it. This guy's got it. Like, this guy's definitely the best. This guy's definitely, like, really there. A lot of people talk about aura, right? Aura, right? Um, Michael Jordan's a good example of this, where he had an aura, right? Everybody could feel the energy coming off of him. But I believe that that's actually just the result of him having so much dead confidence in his ability due to the fact that he's trained and developed so much that it's an energy that melts off of him, right? That he projects off of him into the room around him. These guys aren't as serious as he is and they can feel it, right? And they know, like, this guy's really about it. He's really serious because he's developed himself through the repetitions to be this confident. Yeah, I know I'm gonna make my it's basketball. I'm gonna make my damn shots, right? Like I'm gonna cross all y'all up and I'm gonna dunk on your ass. Um, and it's not a bragging. It's not a flex. It's not like an ego thing. It's just a true fact of, yeah, I'm really like that. Like, I really got that. I'm really him because you've trained so much and developed your skills so much that you know exactly, all right, when I get the ball and I take my shot, like, it's going in the net. It's going to splash every single time because I've trained it and I've developed it and I trust my body to do what it needs to do, right? But this aura, right? This is something that we can typically feel, right? This is something that we can pick up on. And this is why you're attracted to, if your favorite sport is soccer or if your favorite sport is snowboarding, a specific snowboarder or soccer player versus another one, right? Even though their skills might be right around the same, that's not what you're really looking at. That's not what you're really looking for. It's a level of confidence that allows you to flow at a different level than the rest, right? The best snowboarders aren't always the ones doing the biggest tricks, right? They're the ones who can do all of the tricks the best, right? And with the most confidence and the most flow, right? Those who look like they're tense or stressed about a trick, even if they do it perfectly, it doesn't come out and it doesn't look or feel the same as someone who's really loose, really relaxed, really confident, and just flowing through a course. Let's say it's a slope style course, right? Flowing through the course and just flowing from trick to trick and having this level of confidence and ease to it that allows it to be more visually appealing, right? More appealing to those who are actually watching, um, as well as the person themselves, right? If you notice the difference between how it feels to do something that you know you're doing wrong versus something that you've practiced and learned how to do correctly, it is much more rewarding when you've done it enough times to be able to do it right and you continue to do it right. And that's just a very subtle, like, basic idea that it is actually much more enjoyable to do things that you're good at. And so developing these skills, you will know and you will feel when you're getting to the level you want to be at or not. right? This last part is why you need to lock in and grind. There is no simple answer to this question, as there is an infinite list of reasons why you will benefit from truly putting aside the vices and focusing solely on your goals. For men, the answer is simple. You will not be truly happy unless you are actively working or progressing in a specific direction. But beyond that, what benefit are we getting from only being half in and half out? The half out part doesn't make things any easier. In fact, it is holding us back from progressing in the areas we are working on. So, progress can be made much faster and in full when we fully commit to the journey, whereas progress is only ever half made when we are only ever halfway in, right? So, the reason is, if there is something, the reason you clicked on this video, right? You clicked on this video because it's titled Just Lock In and Grind. There's something eating away at you that you know you want to accomplish, that you know you want to go after. You will never benefit from only going halfway, right? You will never benefit from only going halfway, right? Because you have removed yourself from the life of comfort, but you are not allowing yourself to enter into this new life of discipline and success, right? And so you're in a purgatory state, which is worse than anything that there is. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse than being in a state of purgatory, right? Where your identity aligns with something higher, but you're holding yourself back through what is lower, um, while still reaching out for what is greater, right? You can't quite reach this, but you're starting to get to the point you can't reach down here either. Um, and so you're stuck in this state of purgatory or of limbo, right? But when you have this thing, which I know you have this thing that you're thinking about, that you just want to be able to lock in on, but there's this, there's that, and there's the third in the way of you doing that, or it's just too difficult for you to go without your vices long enough to commit. And to that, I'd say give it your all, right? Whatever that looks like, whatever that is, it may not be what you envision your all to be, right? It may not be your perfect outcome, but if you give it your all, right? If you give anything, right, your all, your 100% effort, and you continue to do that over a long period of time, eventually it will look like what you envision it to be, right? But progress will be slow. Progress will take time. So just start now, right? Just start now. Just put down the things that are getting in your way and just focus on the things that aren't, right? And there's going to be times you slip up, right? It's not going to be perfect. Things like monk mode, where you have to have these perfect structures, which I do believe in monk mode. I'm not dissing on monk mode. I'm in a monk mode right now. That's why this video is coming to you. I'm in a monk mode right now, so I'm not dissing on it. But with the idea of monk mode, when you're just fully locked in and grinding and you can't have anything else until this certain date, and then that certain date comes and you just kind of throw away all of the productive shit and you go back to the way you were before, that's not the way you progress, right? The way you progress is by starting small. The way you progress is by starting with where you're at, right? Start with the basics. Meditate every day. Make sure you're exercising and in the gym. And if it's a goal like a business that you want to achieve, just start working on things. Just start building things. It does not have to go all the way immediately, but you want the immediate rewards, so you don't go ahead and pursue the work. But it won't happen immediately. So just do the work. Start building projects, right? If you want to start your first business, and let's say you want to do drop shipping, right? Go start building stores and find products that would be interesting to you and that you would be able to create interesting content around and be able to advertise well. And then go and just create the adverts, right? Go and buy the product and go and create videos. And if you're like, oh, this isn't going anywhere, or like, I don't actually like this product, well, fuck it. You spent like 20 bucks. You're good. All right. If you're in a position where $20 is too much to be spending on a business, well, maybe get a job instead, or like I said, go work more on the self-improvement stuff. Go work more on the gym. Like if you're in school, for example, and you can't get a job, but you don't have 20 bucks either, go ahead and start going to the gym. If you're a kid, right? If you're younger, preteen, teenager, you don't have a car or whatever, I guarantee if you ask your parents, more likely than not, depending on the situation, there's obviously an infinite number of possibilities, but more likely than not, if your parents are available, they will love the idea of you being like, hey, I want to start going to the gym. You guys bring me like 3 days a week or whatever, right? Start to pursue something that will allow you to step closer to that thing, even if that thing that I mentioned, right? The thing you're thinking about that you really just want to be able to lock in on, if that's not the thing you can pursue yet, pursue the foundational parts of it, right? So every successful entrepreneur had a stage or a period where they were focused on their fitness and self improvement, self development to create the person, the identity that they're now living in as an entrepreneur and that they then created their business from, right? So start from where you're at. But for those who are in a position where they can just lock in and they can grind, but they don't, they won't, right? They refuse to make the changes necessary to then go and achieve that, right? To those people, I say, just try it, right? Just try it for a period of time. Just put everything down. And it doesn't even have to be a few weeks or a few days, right? You could take a block of the morning and have it be solely dedicated to your business and growth within that business, right? And just work up from there, build up from there. But if you give yourself 100% effort, right? If you go 100% into your goals, even if it looks like every single day from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., I'm working on my business, or from 6 a.m. till 9 a.m., I'm working on my business, right? That will create the changes necessary in your brain to then say, like, okay, hey, I'm locked in, I'm focused here, this is my thing. Then it starts to integrate into your identity and become a part of who you are. And from there, you can build upon that. You can build on top of those blocks. It's just that you have to be willing to slowly or all at once cut out the things that are distracting you and replace them with the things that you find to be productive or that you would consider to be productive. So, um, my story, I'm right now, I just entered a monk mode. Today is day one. Um, and I'm doing a new training block. So this is going to be still more of a training focused period of time, as snowboarding season just ended a couple days ago. I mean, kind of misleading considering it's literally snowing right now. But here, you can't see that. Oh yeah, she's snowing. um, Literally snowing right now. We haven't gotten snow in like 3 or 4 weeks, and snowboarding season ended a day ago, and now we're getting snow. But season's over, so I just built the trampoline, which is now fucking covered in snow. I'm gonna have to go clear it off to train later, after I get done with this video. But snowboarding season just ended, so I'm going into a new monk mode where I'm going to lock in my content here, because I know you guys missed me. I've been gone for way too long, in my opinion. I am not justifying this by any means, but I've been gone for about 3 to 4 months. I took a little break from YouTube to focus on my self development and my snowboarding as well, just because I it's been a while since I've had this much freedom, right? And it's also been a while since we've had a really good snowboarding season. And so I wanted to go all in and dedicate myself to training as hard as I can, developing myself as much as possible within my sport to just see, right? See what I can actually achieve, how much I can go for. And it was a very promising season. It was a very, very successful season, in my opinion. Um, but to that point, I stopped making content for a little while, and my diet has been really, really good, on point, perfect. My fitness, I've been on point with my fitness. I've been training in the gym still, and I was there every day. I was snowboarding every day, all day long. So that was really nice. That was a good little block of time. But now it's time for me to focus on my training. I need to heal my body up. I took on a couple minor injuries, nothing serious, but a couple things that I'm going to need to work on rehabbing for a couple weeks, and then strengthening over the course of the spring and summer season. So there's just a few things, my training content, and I am working on a project. I did mention this project back in November, but obviously things didn't really go anywhere with that project. We made a lot of progress. Everything was built out, but I just decided not to launch it right away. There were a few other things that I wanted to work on within that project, and now I'm actually deciding I'm going to completely redo certain parts of it, and basically repackage it so that it'll be a little bit less overwhelming for you guys. So that is something that's still coming. That's a project that's part of my YouTube. So that's something I'm working on. I'm working on getting content out there again, and I'm working on my training, right? So that's my monk mode that I'm in right now. And I've been kind of half in, half out for a little while, right? Like I mentioned before, the state of half in, half out, right? And it kind of sucks, right? Because you make progress in one area, but you just kind of get stuck on all the other ones. So what I'm doing is I'm completely dedicating myself to my content, my YouTube, and my training, and my development as an athlete and as an individual, as a person. So my self improvement, my fitness, and my business. Completely dedicating myself to these things for the next 4 weeks, and completely removing any vices or distractions for those 4 weeks. And this is kind of a foundational period. After these 4 weeks, I'm actually going to do another monk mode that's just going to be a little bit more um, extreme, I guess you could say. But right now, I'm just kind of building back up my foundation with a lot of these things. I'm going to launch the Academy of Intelligence, is the name of my project. I'll tell you guys that much now. Um, the Academy of Intelligence will be prepared and ready to be launched by the end of these 4 weeks. Completely built out, completely ready to go, and it will be announced after the fact, probably in my buffer period before my next monk mode. I'll make a video and announce it to you guys. I'm also going to make a video showing you guys the product, which is going to be interesting. So those will both be marketed as Raw Thoughts videos. Those won't be part of my scheduled uploads, but I will be making content that is just going to cover the project for you guys. And yeah, so these 4 weeks, I'm focused on building out this project, getting content out again, and finally um, training and really optimizing my fitness, right? I've been thinking about it for ages and like craving not just making content, but specifically just being in this like focused period where I'm just locked in and I'm grinding every day, all day. Um, so yeah, my next video, my next Raw Thoughts video, I'm actually going to show you guys, or explain to you guys, and show you how I create my monk mode structures and how I create these protocols and how like I would think about building it out, and then how I would actually go about executing on that protocol. So that'll be an interesting video you guys can look forward to. But yeah, other than that, I think that is all from me, and I'm out of here. Peace.